Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cosmic Owl Astrology. I am Louise Eddington, your Cosmic Owl and Wisdom Weaver and Cyberpunk Priestess of the Stars. I have a new website launching soon. I'm so proud of it. I've got a couple of edits I need to make to it, and I'm moving to a whole new platform. I did put a hold on taking any new bookings for readings during that time, but that'll be opened up again soon. And I might just, because my rates are going up because I'm so unbelievably busy. But I will say, I will probably open up the new website that I'm so excited about with a special offer on readings. Okay, so just watch for that. But what else did I want to announce? Oh, my book. Yeah, my book series is doing really well, but it seems to be stuck on the 30 reviews that I had before. So if you have the book, I would really appreciate it if you'd leave me a review. I'm getting amazing feedback from it. And even if you didn't buy it from Amazon, please leave me a review. You can go to Amazon Kindle and leave a review. You don't have to have bought it off Amazon. Okay, so I think that's all the homework. But also, here we are. I'm recording this on Tuesday, October the 7th. That's a terrible, terrible anniversary of all the awful things that are happening in Gaza. And I didn't get a week ahead video done for this week because I had done a month's video and I had a full moon video to do, and then I had this to do, and I was away again for the weekend. And sometimes I just can't do it all. Plus, I'm a Swiftie and I have been dancing to Taylor Swift since Taylor Swift Friday. But I have a couple of things to say about that. I'm recording this under the energy of the full moon. The full moon was late last night where I live here in Utah. So it was overnight. It was extremely bright overnight. And it is a supermoon. I think I neglected to mention that on the video. We seem to have a lot of supermoons lately, and that's because this year we still are at solar maximum. Solar maximum itself was back in March, the very maximum declination, but we are still at solar maximum overall. Sorry, lunar maximum. Oh, we're at solar maximum as well, but we're at lunar maximum, which happens every 19 years. And so officially, like I said, the most maximum the moon was in declination was back in March, but now we're still getting very big full moons, which means the moon is closest to Earth. And that also means that the energy is really, really heightened. So I want to talk a little bit about Aries full moons. Now, okay, so I'm just going to share the chart where we're at. I'm not going to get the whole full moon chart up and go into details because then I want to give you a little bit of a week ahead, but I have some bits I want to say. So here we are today, where I am. It's actually 8:44 where I am. That's interesting. So it's 10:44 in DC. I'm going to have to check why it does that. But anyway, it doesn't really matter that much. But you can see over here, we've got the moon in Aries. The moon was opposing the sun at 14 Aries Libra, which is the me-we axis, and the moon is coming up to Eris and Chiron, which are about to have a conjunction. And the guide or ruler for the new moon is in Scorpio. Mars is over here in Scorpio, and Mars is also the traditional guide for the sign of Scorpio, and Pluto is the modern one. So this is a very potent full moon. And whilst I tend to try and do my readings to give you inspiration and to give you the impetus to do the work, to step more fully into yourself and all those things, I will have to talk a little bit about the shadow. And this has come up from listening briefly to a couple of my fellow astrologers' videos about reactivity, courage, cowardice, and I'm going to add reactivity, because Aries and Mars can both be extremely reactive and extremely kind of sensitive as well in many ways. If you think about the sign of Aries, so I'm just going to stop the share. I just wanted to point those things out. But I do want, before we move on, I do want to point out how much energy we have in Aries. So Neptune has not yet moved back into Pisces. Ceres is retrograde, moving back to 2 degrees Aries, where we had Venus and the Sun meet, the Venus star point, back on March the 22nd, when Venus was retrograde. We have the moon, which is our emotions, and it's the people in mundane astrology, and Eris and Chiron. So Chiron is both the wound that cuts deep but also lets the light in. And so Eris is, she was the outsider who was not invited to the wedding. And so she went along to the wedding of the elites and threw in the apple of discord that said to the fairest, which led to the Trojan War. Now, Eris did not cause the war, but she was deemed too ugly to be invited to the wedding, so she was the ultimate outsider. I think she's been mischaracterized a lot in astrology as hate and things, but she merely revealed how people treat outsiders and those that do not fit the norm and the mold, whatever, of the elites, if you like. And then to talk about that, to go to Mars in Scorpio, look at all this Scorpio we have too. So we have Mercury, the voice, verbal, Haumea, regeneration. Black Moon Lilith is our wild elemental self. She's kind of connected with the moon, but she's that extra wild part of the moon energy. So the emotion, this is a very emotional full moon. And Mars is like a psychic surgeon, but it's piercing, and it's piercing to the soul. And then it's a water sign. Water signs are sensitive. I know Scorpio can be really resilient, but it's also very sensitive. And Hecate is the goddess of the crossroads, but she is also a moon goddess, a triple moon goddess. So I just want to talk a little bit more about Aries, and then I'll go on to why I've done this. So Aries, as I mentioned, can be reactive. It can be this, it can be, but it's very, I am. It's very like, if you're really in tune with your Aries, you are very centered, you've learned about who you are deep inside. You've learned about taking very conscious action. You're very aware, but that takes a long time. That is a journey. In other respects, Aries is like the toddler of the zodiac. It wants what it wants. It's very direct. It's wide-eyed with wonder, but it can also throw a raging tantrum. And it's very much about me, me, me as a toddler. And so I'm going to talk about what a couple of other videos have been talking about. We content providers, people out on the internet and anywhere in the world, people can only talk about and do things from their own perspective, right? But it takes courage to really be fully who you are in the world, okay? So Aries can also be quite bullying, but it's quite sensitive to that bullying too. So I don't want to go way into all these psychological contexts, but I've noticed, and I've noticed it on my YouTube as well, and on, other places, the kind of like reactive, ragey comments and just attacking, just being like totally unconscious and being very projecting your issues onto other people, kind of very aggressive, very assertive. They've been on the uptick as we approached this full moon, this Aries powerful full moon. Now, if you are doing the work and are very conscious, then you may not react back to it. You may not bully back to the bullies. But that doesn't mean you can't stand up for yourself, right? So there's all that energy, and extrapolate that out into the world. You know, if people are kind of like jabbing at you, you do not have to stand for it. You can remove yourself from it, or you can firmly stand in your strength, like rod of iron. Mars is iron. Aries can be like a rod of iron, very certain, but very certain in the way that it doesn't have to do the power over paradigm, it does the power from paradigm. Now, one of my friends and fellow astrologers did a video, and I kind of feel like she was really stung and hurting. So I'm going to just share another chart because I do have a point to this. All right. This is Taylor Swift's chart. She released this album on Friday, just before this full moon. Okay, and this Aries full moon is on her Eris pretty much. So, you know, it was at 14 Aries. And so that means it's square to her Chiron. And it's also square to her Saturn. And by the way, this is a chart that we rectified. A friend and I am trying to get her to come out as an astrologer. She's really good. But I really, really relate to Taylor Swift because we have the same degree sun and just 2 degrees apart rising sign. And we also have Saturn in Capricorn. And so we also have some other placements the same. Now, I'm not going to sit on her chart. If you want to search the videos, I did a whole video about why this chart works, least of which was that there was an eclipse right here on Aries, which was a tortured poet, the release of her last album, The Tortured Poets Society. And this album is very different, and I'll talk about what this song means now. Okay, so there's a song on her album. I'm a Swiftie. I've got my friendship bracelets. I went to her launch party movie on Friday on my own. I wore orange, and you know, but there's a song called Actually Romantic. And I was thinking of doing this anyway because there is somebody, and I think it's a person, and it's okay. But this person, it's almost like as soon as I upload a video to YouTube, I get this 1 thumbs down every video, and it's okay. All attention is good attention. And I was going to actually sing it and say, but it's actually sweet. All the time, I'm not going to sing. All the time you've spent on me, it's honestly wild. All the effort you've put in, it's actually romantic. I've really got to hand it to you. And I know I was going to add, but it's precious and adorable, but it's like a toy chihuahua barking at me from a tiny purse. That's how much it hurts. Now, but I know that people say, well, I will snap back at rude, aggressive, and overly assertive commenting on the internet. I think people are really, most of you leave gorgeous comments, don't worry. But I think the internet seems to give people permission to treat other people like shit. And we think we see that reflected out in the world, in the politics world as well. How we talk to each other, how we treat each other. It's coming from a very unconscious, very entitled place. And I will not take it because I have that rod of iron, and it's like a toy chihuahua barking at me, right? But then I get these comments back. If I answer back, they go, ooh, you're sensitive, aren't you? Don't be so sensitive. Don't be this. Well, why not? I'm a human. We're all humans. Think about that when you're commenting. I really feel like I'm going to text her after this. I really feel like this one friend of mine was feeling a bit of pain. Okay. She looked tired, and she's been doing this not as long as I have publicly. And so it takes a lot to get used to. And it used to really hurt when people were so rude on the internet. But now it's like a chihuahua barking at me. So whoever leaves those thumbs down every video, thank you. All attention is good. Keep being that chihuahua. You're hurting yourself more than anybody else by this obsession. It's kind of weird. It's honestly wild, all the effort you've put in, and it's actually kind of romantic. I live in your head so much. So anyway, that was my comment about the full moon, in addition to the full moon video I did. Now I'm just going to go through the rest of the week very quickly. Mercury also moved into Scorpio, as we saw on the chart yesterday. And so Mercury in Scorpio can be these stingy words. And so I felt like I had to kind of get off my butt and make this video. So today we're October the 7th. We're still under this full moon energy. There are no major aspects, really, I say there are none. But Mercury is at the focal point of a finger of destiny or fate or God. From Uranus sextile, Uranus in Gemini sextile Neptune in Aries. I will add in Sedna as well, conjunct Uranus. So Mercury is really ready to say, no, we're not doing this anymore, and is ready to speak truth to power from this really deeply empowered place. And that's kind of the destiny, to speak up for yourself and then for others. Mercury, of course, will also square Pluto, because every planet that changes signs right now runs the gamut of all of these planets that are the big change makers. So Mercury is going to conjunct Haumea, which is regeneration in Scorpio. Pluto is digging up the shadow and the excrement, but also your inner gold. And Pluto is now at his station point, to station direct later. So extra digging in with his deep excavator and so on. So we've got that. So Mercury is very potent today. So expect people speaking truth to power, and expect people to be stung if they have not yet found that rod of iron out there in the world. And some people are just more sensitive than others, right? Because, they may have a Cancer rising or something, which is deeply sensitive, but can also be really tough. So just think about how you're speaking to people and how you're speaking about yourself. Now on to Wednesday, October the 8th. That kind of continues because Mercury then exactly conjuncts Haumea. But then the moon will move into the sign of Taurus for a couple of days. And that's a real opportunity to kind of just go to ground a little bit. Taurus is the roots. Taurus is what we value. Taurus is the body and nature. And so, if this full moon has been quite a lot for you, please make sure you kind of go to ground tomorrow. Okay. You kind of really get into your body, go and sit in nature or spend some time in nature, or spend time with those and what you value most. Then we have a lovely aspect of opportunity between Venus in Virgo and Jupiter in Cancer. That's another earth-water aspect. And that one is deeply supportive. It harks back to the cycle that started on August the 12th, when Venus met Jupiter in Cancer, and the date I released my series book, and it was with Sirius, the dog star. So this is the opening sextile aspect, 60 degrees. You can actually see them early in the morning. If you go outside, you can spot Jupiter and Venus as Venus rises above the horizon before the sun. You have to go out early, probably about 6 a.m. Timeanddate.com can actually give you the date the time the planets rise where you are. You'll just have to Google time and date and planets rising or something like that. And so, but that's like, that those two planets are really involved in manifestation and creation. I really see them working together. Jupiter is kind of the natural laws of the zodiac, and Venus is our creative energy and what we value again. So those two work together. And so I'm going to recommend this book again. It's also in my Amazon store below. If you buy it through the Amazon store, if you use Amazon, you might get I might get like 5 or 6 cents for every copy, but I just found out he died. But look, orange, orange, orange. Anyway, this guy was a neuroscientist, and it's the best book on law of attraction, manifestation I have ever read. And it's got a 6-week course at the end of it. And he even talks about how he didn't focus on every area of life. He made all this money and things and then lost his whole family. And so was empty life emotionally. So this is why I love this book. It goes into depth, deep manifestation for abundance, creating abundance in all areas of your life. But anyway, that's very Mercury mind magic too. So, but also that Venus sextile Jupiter. Okay, so let me see if there are any other aspects tomorrow. Well, yes, Chiron will exactly meet Eris. I did point out that on the chart that I looked at, that's going to meet at 25 Aries, and the two of them, this is the second meeting because Chiron is much faster, and I'm going to say I always think that the second exact conjunction, when we have one conjunction, as this in this case as Eris, as Chiron went over Eris, or from our perspective, the second one when Chiron is retrograde, and there'll be another one when Chiron goes direct again. I always find the middle turning point conjunction kind of like the most potent in many ways. So I want to read the symbol for you. I'm just going to go to James Burgess's site. I like his site. As usual, I'm going to change it from a man. But the Sabian symbol is a human or a person possessed of more gifts than they can hold. But he says, this is a warning against overstretching, maybe. Avoiding overwhelm by development of discrimination. That's true, it could be that. But he says it's very unsettling to find ourselves awakened to life as a constant spiritual experience. Rules and restrictions also operate on this level, and we have to relearn what we may or may not attempt. We are advised to move forward calmly with a high degree of caution as we encounter examinations and trials of a higher order. There's another reading here that says, at what am I competent? Now, my own personal kind of reading of this is all about abundance of talent and potential and ability. There's a natural sense that we could do anything we want with this aspect if we heal all our gifts. But sometimes I will agree that, we can have so much available to us that we do try to do everything. Now I'm going to look at Dane Rudhyar's reading of this. He says the keynote is obsession with Mars in Scorpio, you might be right, by potentiality. He says the mind which finds itself confronted with a totally unfamiliar and as yet unexperienced type of potency finds it difficult at first to adjust to its new world of perception and possibilities of action. They may rush ahead excitedly and lose their bearings. They should try to reach a state of calm watchfulness and to learn that at this level there are some limits and restrictions, i.e., laws expressing this new type of order. He says it's kind of a warning against undertaking more than it is as yet safe and sound to attempt. Well, yeah, I kind of agree with all of that, though I find those a bit negative. It's like my mum once said to me, my dad always said, be careful, be careful, be careful to us kids. And my mum said, if you put that in their heads, one wise word she did once, if you put this in your heads, then in their heads, then they'll be scared of things all the time. There's ways of wording this. I would say you are capable of doing anything that you choose once you step into that rod of iron Aries and start to know who you are. But be cautious of just trying to do everything at once and kind of like focus, which is very Aries. Now that you are doing the healing and the work, focus on where you are going. All right, so on to the 9th, which is Thursday. 2 more days after that. Venus will make an aspect of adjustment to that Chiron Eris conjunction. So Venus in Virgo is very much about doing the right thing, doing meaningful work, being more discriminating and discerning, shall we say. So bearing in mind that symbol, this is an opportunity to bring in some discernment about which opportunities and pioneering opportunities and rush of excitement you are taking on right away. Kind of get to the nuts and bolts and the filing and make a plan and things like that. Okay, on to October the 10th. The moon enters the sign of Gemini very early in the morning. We'll be in the sign of Gemini for a couple of days. So that's more sociable, lighter, more thoughtful, but this is about talking and communication. And one other thing I've noticed as we enter this week under this full moon is that people seem to be learning to listen and talk to others more. Somebody I really like has started kind of going on and talking to other commenters. I'm not going to mention who it is, but he's doing these series of interviews to listen to other people's perspectives and listen to them without kind of like challenging and like being a Rottweiler all the time. So, but being more calm about how he talks and asks them about, why do you really think that, things like that. He's not being the chihuahua barking at people from a tiny purse. He is being very clear on his views, but also listening to the others. And I think that's what we need more of in this world. So also on the 10th, so Friday, whole week after that, since the release of Life of a Showgirl. Do you like that? I did the colours. Anyway, the sun in Libra is that's about our relationships, right? So that's about that's about the scales of justice as well. Is going to make a lovely unbroken flow trine to Chariklo, the space holder, who is holding space for us to write a new story. And that will also move on to make that same aspect to asteroid Lilith, talk to the hand. I really feel a big shift coming. Okay, I really feel people, kind of waking up. And I know it may seem to be happening very slowly. I think you have to look for the signs. I really think we're not going to be in this situation forever. Oh, October the 11th. Oh, by the way, who did I see? Oh, Curtis Yarvin. He's awful, horrible man. But he's kind of this philosopher that all the tech bros follow and that JD Vance follows and things. He's talking about leaving the States because he thinks this regime is going to collapse. So that's a good sign. So, lastly, on Saturday, Mercury has already moved to 6 Scorpio by then, and will make this water trine to Hygeia, which is preventative health in Cancer, 6 Cancer, but Mercury will also square Pallas Athena, which is at 6 Aquarius, the south node of the USA, and still at her station point. And so, I did a whole video on that 6 Aquarius point with my colleague and friend Dawn Hills. And so this is at the mother number. This is going to start shifting things and start giving us strategies to change. But the biggest aspect on Saturday, as well as the sun aspecting asteroid Lilith, I mentioned that already, is that Venus will oppose Saturn. Now, this is really important because Saturn is back to, on this opposition, 26 degrees, 59 minutes Pisces. And in fact, let me maybe show you this really quickly. We'll just go to. So I want to go back to when Venus was retrograde, back earlier in the year. If you did my Venus retrograde class, you would have known this. So you can see last year, Venus stationed direct after her retrograde. She was retrograde from 10 Aries to 24 Pisces. And when she stationed direct, she was conjunct Saturn, pretty much, like very close. Now, so then we had the conjunction. This I'll show you really quickly. This is how cycles start. So just 12 days later, Venus and Saturn met at 27 degrees because Venus took a while to start moving. Conjunct the North Node. If you were in my class, you'll know how big this was. Look, the moon was there as well. Incidentally, the moon was involved when Venus stationed retrograde at 10 Aries too. Ceres was there as well, by my book. But this was also square the galactic center. So this was a huge start to this Venus period. Venus star point lasts till the next superior conjunction, 9.5 months, but it also ripples on much longer than that. I can't go into the whole Venus cycle right now, but if you note that this was at 27 degrees of Pisces, now on October the 11th, on this Saturday, it's almost at 27 degrees Virgo Pisces again. Saturn has just moved off 27 degrees Pisces. So we're kind of visiting something that began back then. Let me show you when that was again, so you can look at the date. April the 24th, the new cycle began. Maybe I should look at news. On this day, April 2025. Let me tell you what was in the news, and that might just kind of, really kind of nudge what was happening in your life. So in April, early in April, that's when Cory Booker of New Jersey did the longest speech in US Senate history, speaking for just over 25 hours. We also had massive storms in the Midwest and Mid-South, killing 23 people. We had Liberation Day announced by Donald Trump, just saying, on April the 2nd, announcing all these terror tariffs. Hungary withdrew from the ICC. Anyway, there's all kinds of, that's the International Court, by the way. Let me look closer in the month because, this is more towards the end of the month. But this is just to kind of really nudge your mind. So we had a big wildfire in New Jersey, April the 22nd. And then a gunman killed at least 26 mostly Indian tourists and injured dozens of others in Kashmir. Pope Francis was buried on April the 26th. That's interesting because the new Pope has been coming out with some quite different things. And Beyonce began her Cowboy Carter tour. um, and I think we had some really severe storms in Western Pennsylvania as well. So I'm not necessarily saying it's exactly things related to that, but those might trigger the themes in your mind from that period, because this week finishes with this opposition in this practical mystic sign and it's going back to what began back then, back in April, back when Venus stationed direct on the 12th, then caught up to Saturn, because something massive began then that is reaching fulfillment now. And now Venus is in Virgo. Venus is in Virgo, looking at all of this, the world, and going, what do we need to purge? What do we need to release? It's almost like a full moon. What do we need to let go of? And also, how can we step into our more meaningful and discerning life? It's that word again. And now I think I also have to look at the Sabian symbol for 27 Virgo, where Venus is for this. So, and then I'll pull a card, and then I'll love you and leave you. Okay, well, if I go to the Sabian symbologist, his words about this are actions speak louder than words. I think that's good advice. The actual symbol is Grande Dame Dames at T. This is a symbol of life's maturity as a threshold of new discovery rather than as any cancelling out of personal reality. And it emphasizes the fact that each individual may pass on what they have gained and thereby have an effective continuance of themselves through others. Here are the highly concentrated values of selfhood, that's very Aries, by the way, as a reservoir of personal assets, since the traditions of one generation are always the ever-ready strength of the next. He says, when positive, the degree is an efficient administration of inheritance or position, and a full capitalization on the opportunities of common experience. When negative, it can be a selfish delight in special privileges of any sort. I will take that one with you. I will just say, though, that James Burgess says tradition is revered and the confused mind is centered by practicing normal everyday functions in a ritualistic manner. There are rituals carried out in society, especially high society, that relate to the manner of dress or conversation, blah, blah, blah. These hold in place certain qualities that are otherwise lost, such things as dignity, elegance, respect for tradition and hierarchy and such like. Why should we respect hierarchy? They also expose rebelliousness and dissension, and so help protect the status quo and support the pursuit of excellence. And this other bit says, may future generations always have better prospects than we ourselves inherited. So there you go, different kind of forecast for the week. If you haven't heard her new album yet, I love it. That's my Swiftie, my Tay-Tay. We are exactly 30 years apart to that 21-degree Sagittarius sun. I think our rectification of her chart is correct, and she's Sagittarius rising. She even talks about her thighs in one song. Sagittarians are renowned for having rising are renowned for, good strong thighs. I can tell you. And also we have Saturn in Capricorn in the first house, because I know that chart is right. Holly and I spent a lot of time on it. There's rumors she's Scorpio rising. There's some that she's Capricorn rising. I even saw a rectification that had her as Pisces rising. I'm married to a Pisces rising. No. Anyway, the card for this week is the Goddess of Discs. More orange. I keep getting it's orange. It's hilarious. Anyway, I'm loving this energy. I'm having a blast. I'm having a blast with all the music. I'll just find this and I'll tell you where I was. At the weekend, we drove to Vegas and back, and we went to see Paul McCartney, who's 83. And I will say he did look a little bit shaky at first. All right. But that's not right. Goddess of Discs is the bird. Anyway, this is generally a card of rebirth, healing, and kind of like leaving the cage, right? Okay, like the birds. I don't know where the right interpretation is for that. There might be there was a mistake in the book with the cards, so I'm just going to leave it at that, and you can take it with you. This is the Queen of Pentacles or Discs in other suits. Anyway, Paul McCartney was great. 83. When he came on, he did kind of seem a little bit old and wobbly for the first couple of songs, maybe. But then it's like the music took over his soul, and he's like, oh, this is what I'm about. This is me. And he was great, and he was on stage for over 3 hours. So I told my friend Holly, who helped me rectify the chart, that I'm going to be the Paul McCartney of astrology. Anyway, I love you, and expect more of this kind of more blunt Louise, okay, shall we say. And just stop it on the internet. I'm not going to say try to be respectful. I'm going to say, just if you can't be nice, then don't say anything and just move on. Some of us have developed that rod of iron. I've got a very strong Aries South Node, and I can kind of lean into it, and I can do it without attacking now. But I'm going to say just stop it. I don't do it anymore. I used to before I kind of did all my personal growth work. Now I just scroll if I can't be kind. Bye.